Remember when flying business class actually meant something? You'd step on board and instantly feel it. The calm, the space, the quiet hum of luxury. Real meals on real plates, a seat that turned into a bed, and service that made you feel like a guest, not a number. Fast forward to 2025, and that experience is vanishing fast. Today, business class can mean anything from world-class comfort to a cramped seat with a glass of cheap wine. Prices keep climbing, but the standards keep falling. So which airlines still deliver the comfort you're paying for, and which are just pretending? We've ranked 15 of the most important business class airlines in the world, from the biggest disappointments to the few that still make flying feel special. And number 15. Let's just say it might be America's biggest embarrassment in the sky. Number 15. American Airlines. American Airlines calls its product flagship business, but for many travelers it's hard to see what's flagship about it anymore. Once a symbol of American excellence in the skies, it's become one of the most inconsistent and frustrating business class experiences you can buy. Step on board, and you never quite know what you're getting. One aircraft might feature the sleek Super Diamond seats with modern lighting and privacy. The next, a tired cabin with peeling finishes and decade-old screens. The gap between promise and reality is enormous. For a ticket that often costs over $4,000, the result feels closer to a lottery than luxury. Meal service is equally unpredictable. Sometimes you'll get a proper restaurant-quality dish. Other times, it's lukewarm pasta that looks like it came from the back of a high school cafeteria. Flight attendants range from warm and professional to visibly exhausted and disengaged. Even the lounges, once a highlight, now feel crowded and joyless. For many senior travelers who value calm and comfort above all, it's simply not worth it. American Airlines still sells the dream of prestige, but in 2025, it's mostly smoke and nostalgia. If you're enjoying this ranking and want to help us create more honest travel videos, consider subscribing. It really makes a difference. And now, let's move to the next airline on our list and see what helped it narrowly escape the very last spot. Number 14. United Airlines. United is a strange story. An airline that constantly feels just a few steps away from greatness, yet somehow never quite gets there. The name Polaris sounds futuristic, elegant, even celestial. But if you've ever flown it, you know that behind the branding, the experience can be uneven at best. On the right day, in the right plane, United's business class feels genuinely premium. The seats are comfortable, the bedding is solid, and the cabin lighting makes long flights surprisingly calm. But that version of United is rare. Too often, passengers board older aircraft that still carry the ghosts of the 2000s. Flickering screens, worn seats, and tray tables that creak when they open. The food isn't bad, but it's forgettable. The service, meanwhile, swings between friendly smiles and robotic efficiency. You never really know which United you're going to get. For many senior travelers, that inconsistency can make long-haul trips unnecessarily stressful. Still, compared to some of its American rivals, United at least shows signs of trying. You can see flashes of progress, just not enough to trust it completely. Next up, we cross the Atlantic to an airline that once defined style at 35,000 feet, but has struggled to keep that crown. Number 13. British Airways. There was a time when flying British Airways felt like a privilege. The accent, the uniforms, the quiet confidence. It was the very definition of class. You didn't just fly BA, you experienced it. But that era is fading fast. Step into their business cabin today, and the charm begins to crack. The seats are arranged in a way that still confuses first-time passengers. Half facing backward, half forward, a relic from when the concept was groundbreaking. Now it just feels dated and awkward. On some routes, you might get the newer club suite, which finally offers privacy and comfort. But the rollout has been painfully slow, leaving most travelers stuck in that old, cramped layout. Food and service tell the same story. The presentation is neat, but the flavors are tired. The staff staff are polite but rarely warm. It's not that British Airways is bad, it's just uninspired. The airline seems caught between its glorious past and a future it hasn't quite figured out. For many senior travelers, it still holds sentimental value, but sentiment doesn't buy comfort. Next, we land in Paris, where elegance is promised at every turn, though reality has its own ideas. Number 12. Air France. Few airlines know how to make a first impression like this one. From the moment you board, everything whispers elegance. The scent of espresso, the soft lighting, the effortless calm that feels distinctly French. The menus read like something from a fine restaurant, and even the safety video feels like an art piece. But once the cabin door closes, the cracks start to show. Some aircraft, especially the newer A350s, deliver a genuine sense of luxury, sleek design, excellent bedding, and quiet sophistication. Others, mainly the older 77s, feel tired and narrow, as if the glamour never made it past business class marketing. The food is usually excellent, sauces rich, bread fresh, wine well chosen, but service can feel strangely detached. Courteous, yes, but mechanical. The kind of professionalism that forgets warmth. Air France is beautiful to look at but unpredictable to fly with. A mix of grace and inconsistency. So what about the next airline? Can they finally bring back some real hospitality to the skies? Number 11. Turkish Airlines. Turkish Airlines has something most carriers lost years ago: personality. There's warmth in the way you're greeted, a sense of care that feels genuine, and a dining experience that still manages to impress even the most frequent flyers. Real cutlery, fragrant bread, perfectly spiced dishes. It's a reminder that airline food doesn't have to be boring. But behind that charm lies a more complicated reality. The experience changes dramatically depending on the plane you board. On the modern Dreamliners and A350s, business class feels refined, quiet, sleek, and comfortable. On the older A330s, though, the cabin tells a different story: cramped seats, limited privacy, and a design that feels stuck in another decade. Then there's Istanbul's new airport, an architectural masterpiece that somehow manages to feel like a marathon. The flagship lounge is stunning, but reaching it can take half the time of a short-haul flight. Still, there's something about Turkish that's hard to dislike. It's imperfect, yes, but alive, full of flavor, heart, and ambition. For many travelers, that counts for more than perfection, and sometimes a little sincerity in the sky feels rarer than luxury itself. Number 10. Lufthansa. Few airlines represent structure and precision quite like Lufthansa. Everything about it feels measured. The boarding process, the announcements, even the way the crew walks down the aisle. It's efficient, dependable, and unmistakably German. For many travelers, that's exactly what they want. The business class cabin reflects that same practicality. Clean lines, neutral colors, and a layout that favors function over flair. The newer aircraft, like the 787 and A350, offer real improvements, finally bringing privacy doors and upgraded seating. But on the older fleet, it's still the same narrow, open layout that's been around for more than a decade. You can almost feel the years in the design. Service is professional to the point of being mechanical. Every task is done correctly, but rarely with warmth. Meals are well presented but uninspired. Efficient nourishment, not an experience. For senior travelers, it's reliable and predictable, yet lacking that small spark that turns a trip into something memorable. Lufthansa doesn't make big mistakes, it just rarely surprises you. It's the airline equivalent of a perfectly ironed shirt, crisp, competent, and a little bit cold. But the next airline on our list proves that reliability doesn't have to come at the cost of personality. Number 9. Alaska Airlines. Alaska Airlines has built a reputation on friendliness, the kind of genuine, easygoing service that feels more neighborly than corporate. For many American travelers, especially seniors, that warmth matters more than flashy branding. Flying Alaska often feels simple and comfortable until you remember the price tag and realize you're not quite getting business class in the traditional sense. Most of Alaska's fleet doesn't offer lie-flat seats, and the cabin cabins are more reminiscent of premium economy than international luxury. The service, however, is consistently strong. Attentive flight attendants, well-timed drinks, and food that tastes fresh even on shorter routes. It's a reflection of the airline's West Coast roots, relaxed, efficient, and quietly proud. Still, when compared to global competitors, Alaska's first class feels like a halfway step. It's polished for domestic travel, but can't compete with true business products overseas. Comfort, yes. Indulgence, not quite. What saves it is sincerity, the sense that people here actually care. And in an era of automation and scripted smiles, that's worth something. But sincerity alone doesn't define great business class. The next airline aims higher, with bigger planes, broader reach, and a promise that doesn't always land smoothly. Number 8. JetBlue. JetBlue's Mint class is one of those rare airline products that managed to shake up the U.S. market. When it first launched, it felt revolutionary. Private suites, curated menus, artisan cocktails, even proper bedding. For a moment, everyone thought this was the airline that would finally bring real luxury to American skies without the luxury price tag. And to its credit, JetBlue still does a lot right. The seats are comfortable, the design feels modern, and the service has that casual, friendly energy that makes you feel human again. It's a massive step above the legacy carriers on many routes. But the magic fades once you leave the premium coastal markets. The problem isn't quality, it's consistency. On transcontinental flights, Mint shines. On others, the experience feels stripped down and uneven. Add in limited route options, occasional delays, and small hiccups with catering, and it becomes clear that JetBlue's charm doesn't always scale with its ambitions. For senior travelers, it's an inviting experience. Comfortable, calm, even fun, but not quite world-class yet. So what happens when a once great global airline tries to reclaim that same spark and discovers it's harder than it looks? Number 7. Delta Airlines. Delta has built a reputation as the most dependable of America's big airlines, and to its credit, it's earned much of that praise. The cabins are clean, the service consistent, and the airline actually seems to care about presentation. When you step into Delta One, there's an immediate sense of order. Everything where it should be, everyone doing their job well. The seats, especially on newer A350s and A330neos, are genuinely comfortable. Private suites with closing doors, large screens, and bedding that feels like it belongs in a real hotel. It's a huge leap ahead of what domestic travelers once accepted as business class. But perfection still eludes Delta. Older aircraft remain in circulation, and the difference in quality can be jarring. Meal service is thoughtful but uneven. Some flights deliver restaurant-quality plating, others feel more like upscale microwaving. The crews, though, remain Delta's strength, friendly, confident, and refreshingly human. For senior travelers, Delta offers what most are really looking for: predictability and calm. It's not the flashiest airline, but it rarely lets you down. And as we climb higher, we leave practicality behind. Because the next airline doesn't just promise luxury, it turns it into theater. Number 6. Emirates. This airline has long sold itself as the gold standard of flying. Chandeliers, Dom Perignon, and sky-high luxury. It became the dream carrier, the one travelers bragged about flying. For a while, that image worked, but beneath all that glitter, the cracks are starting to show. Yes, the A38s are stunning. The mood lighting, the massive screens, the onboard bar, it's all impressive. But step onto one of their 77s and the fantasy fades quickly. Cramped cabins, outdated seats, and a layout that feels more mass market than premium. It's the price of expansion. Too big to stay consistent. Service can be hit or miss. Some flights feel flawless, others robotic and rushed. The food presentation is glamorous, but flavor doesn't always match the photo. And while the bling appeals to many, it can feel hollow. Like luxury built for Instagram more than experience. For senior travelers, the comfort is undeniable. But the noise, the pace, and the crowds can be overwhelming. Emirates is a spectacle, dazzling from a distance, demanding up close. So, with the pretenders behind us, it's time to meet the real contenders, where business class finally begins to mean something again. Number 5. Qatar Airways. At some point, you stop comparing Qatar Airways to other airlines and start comparing it to hotels. From the moment you board, everything feels orchestrated with precision, soft lighting, spotless cabins, and that calm, almost meditative soundtrack of efficiency. It's no surprise that Kuwait has become the industry's benchmark, a private, door-enclosed sanctuary that feels more like a boutique room than a seat. The food is elegant, fresh, and beautifully presented. Flight attendants move quietly but attentively, addressing passengers by name and adjusting details you didn't even notice needed fixing. For senior travelers, that kind of attentiveness can transform a long flight from endurance to ease. Still, it's not flawless. Ground services can feel slow, and connecting through Doha's endless terminals isn't always as graceful as the brand suggests. But once you're in your seat, it hardly matters. The comfort is unmatched, and the attention to detail borders on obsessive. Qatar doesn't just deliver consistency, it delivers care. It's the first airline in this ranking that genuinely feels like it's trying to make flying enjoyable again. But even excellence can be challenged, and the next airline has spent decades perfecting calm, precision, and quiet luxury that speaks louder than any marketing slogan. Number 4. Singapore Airlines. Singapore Airlines doesn't shout about luxury, it simply delivers it. There's no flash, no ego, no gimmicks, just quiet, confident excellence. From the moment you step on board, everything feels in balance. The lighting, the temperature, the soft-spoken precision of the crew. It's like flying inside a perfectly tuned instrument. The business class cabin feels more like a suite than a seat. Wide, sculpted, and tailored to the smallest detail. The leather is soft, the finish is understated, and the sense of space remarkable. Meals are crafted rather than served, often curated by real chefs from the airline's Book the Cook program, which lets passengers pre-select dishes days before their flight. Every touchpoint feels thought through. Service is where Singapore truly stands apart. The crew doesn't just follow procedure, they seem to anticipate what you need before you realize it yourself. For senior travelers, that level of calm, genuine attentiveness can make even a 12-hour flight feel effortless. If there's a flaw, it's that perfection can sometimes feel distant, more performance than personality. But that's a small price for consistency this smooth. Still, one airline takes that same discipline and infuses it with warmth, creating something not just perfect, but deeply human. Number 3. ANA, All Nippon Airways. With ANA, luxury doesn't need to announce itself. It's built into every movement, every gesture, every quiet nod from the crew. Flying this airline feels less like a service and more like a ceremony. There's precision in everything. How the attendants bow before takeoff, how meals are plated, even how the cabin lighting shift with the time of day. The business class product, especially on the newest The Room configuration, is stunning. Wide, minimalist suites with sliding doors, neutral tones, and the kind of calm you only find in Japanese design. There's no clutter, no excess, just thoughtful perfection. The seat becomes a true flat bed. The storage is intuitive, and even the headphones are positioned exactly where your hand expects them to be. Meals follow the same philosophy, balanced, refined, and presented like art. Every dish, even breakfast, feels intentional. Service is almost telepathic, polite, wordless, deeply respectful. For older travelers, that calm predictability brings real peace of mind. ANA's magic lies in its discipline, the absence of chaos. It's not just about getting somewhere, it's about arriving rested, centered, and a little more at ease with the world. But as graceful as ANA is, one airline takes hospitality even further, turning every flight into something close to an emotional experience. Number 2. Cathay Pacific. This airline has always embodied a different kind of luxury, not loud or showy, but calm, sincere, and quietly confident. It doesn't have to prove anything anymore. You feel it the moment you settle in. The soft lighting, the elegant simplicity of the cabin, and the almost meditative professionalism of the crew. Business class on Cathay isn't about opulence, it's about balance. The seat design, especially on the newer A350s, feels like a private retreat. Spacious, intuitive, and crafted with the traveler's rhythm in mind. Every drawer, button, and surface seems placed exactly where it should be. And when the lights dim, the atmosphere shifts from efficient to deeply tranquil. Meals are simple but exceptional, beautifully plated, always fresh, and distinctly Asian without being heavy-handed. The crew, meanwhile, offers that rare blend of warmth and restraint, attentive without intrusion, polite without distance. For senior travelers, that balance is gold. Cathay Pacific doesn't just transport you, it restores you. It's the kind of flight where time feels slower, calmer, like the world outside is on pause. Still, even this level of grace meets its match. Because there's one airline left that takes comfort, design, and humanity to heights that almost redefine what business class can be. Number 1. Etihad Airways. Every once in a while, an airline reminds you why flying you see to feel magical. And today, that airline is Etihad. While others chase bigger screens or louder branding, Etihad quietly focuses on what matters: peace, privacy, and a sense of genuine care that's almost disappeared from the skies. From the moment you board, the difference is unmistakable. The cabin feels serene, muted tones, soft lighting, and textures that invite you to slow down. The business studio seats are wide and sculpted, designed not just for posture, but for peace of mind. Small touches, a handwritten welcome card, warm towels that actually smell like something pleasant, and a crew that addresses you by name set a tone few airlines can match. Meals are crafted like restaurant dishes, not mass-produced trays. The flavors are balanced, the service unhurried, and the sense of space feels almost personal. Even the lounges in Abu Dhabi reflect the same philosophy: calm, understated, quietly luxurious. For senior travelers, the comfort goes beyond soft seats or fine wine. It's about being looked after without having to ask. Etihad makes that feel effortless. It's the kind of airline that doesn't just get you where you're going, it reminds you that the journey itself can still be beautiful. Because in a world obsessed with faster and cheaper, Etihad proves that grace still matters. So after all the turbulence, the delays, and the disappointments, it turns out business class isn't what it used to be. But maybe that's not entirely bad. The airlines that still care, the ones that focus on peace, comfort, and human connection, remind us why we fell in love with flying in the first place. Luxury doesn't have to scream. It doesn't need gold trim or Instagram lounges. Real luxury is quiet. It's the space to breathe, the meal that feels thoughtful, the smile that isn't rehearsed. If you enjoyed this ranking and want to help us keep making better, more honest travel videos, consider subscribing. It truly helps us stay independent and keep flying for the truth.